Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're here at Ludgvan Church.
CSI Mevagissy.
In today's video,
I shall die by human hand. It's actually a lost well.
the last wolf in England. It smells amazing. Found a piece already. Got some pieces there. Bits of sea glass to look like cobbles.
Possibly a bit arty-farty. Can I say that?
In today's walk, it starts here at Ludgvan Church. We're going to follow the St Michael's Way to Cornwall and then on the southwest coast path to Marazion. It's a circular walk, so we'll bring you back a different way. For the full walk instructions, check out patreon.com, search Cornish Walking Trails. Ludgvan is on the south coast of Cornwall, about 3 miles from Penzance. Now inside the church. It's really dark in here. We've been in some dark churches, but all of the stone has been picked out and repointed, and I guess that's what's making it feel really dark in here. Normally you have a bit of light bouncing around if it's plastered and painted white, don't you? But all of the original old pews are in here. Not that old though, so they're not carved on the ends. It's probably part of the Victorian restoration. I expect it had one, don't you?
I think it's called St Paul's.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's a lovely little church,
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's quite wide.
Yes, quite squat
Yeah.
and wide. Very dark though. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's telling us about the Pilgrim route with the St Michael's Way and
A walk through time from about the 5th or 6th century. The way welcomed waves of Celtic saints from Ireland and Wales. Over 500,000 medieval pilgrims per year travelled to Santiago, embarking from ports including Mounts Bay. Spiritual, cultural and economic influence travelled with them, fostering relationships. Seems quite remarkable that people would have made such an effort and been so dedicated to travel in quite difficult conditions, so many miles for their faith. We're going to start walking down towards Cornwall. This is the tail end of the St Michael's Way, which starts at Lelant Church. The pilgrims used to come across from Ireland, land at Lelant, and then they'd start a landward journey from Lelant to Marazion. At this point, the Saints' Way splits. You can either go through Cornwall or you can go through Crowless. What we're going to do today is go down through Cornwall to Marazion, and make it circular by using the other part of the Saints' Way to come back to here.
Now I'm going to tell you something you don't know now.
Oh, okay.
So my understanding is the reason it split was at the church here you could get a guide to take you down to St Michael's Mount.
Yes.
Which is where the pilgrims were trying to go. And the reason it split, there was a safer route which went via Cornwall.
Okay.
Right, and then there was a trickier route which went the other way. Right, and the reason it was tricky was the legend was that years ago there was wolves in the area. Okay, so if you went with the Cornwall, yeah, and the book we're using today, we'll tell you about that.
Ooh, do get the book out and tell. Book, old book. This is called Popular Romances of the West of England, and it was compiled by Robert Hunt. I'm not going to say written by, because what he did was collect old stories, superstitions, traditions, anything weird and wonderful that Cornish folk believed or passed down through the family, and he brought it together as a collection. One thing I love about this book, it smells amazing. Anyway, that's an aside. It says here, the last wolf in England, the extirpation of the wolves. Extirpation means extermination, get rid of the wolves, which once existed in every part of these islands, is an oft-told story. But it is not generally known that the last native wolf lived in the forests of Ludgvan near Penzance. The last of his race was a gigantic specimen, and terrible was the havoc made by him on the flocks. Tradition tells us that at last he carried off a child. This could not be endured, so the peasantry all turned out and this famous wolf was captured at Rosspeath, the name of a farm still existing near here, near Ludgvan. So when he took the child, that was just a straw too far for the locals. The peasants revolted, they went and captured him, and that was it, the end of wolves in England. The account mentions Ludgvan Woods, and it's obviously farmland here now, so it's probably a very different place to be back then, especially if there's wolves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is woods or a forest, and I talk about marshes as well, and I think the final part of our walk today takes us over where that
makes sense.
That wolves thing, if that was the last wolf in England, I think that's quite interesting. It doesn't give a date. From what I understand, I think it's the late 1600s, early 1700s. But if you know more, pop it in the comments.
Yeah, because obviously the pilgrimage route has been active, well, it was active from, according to the church, 500, 600 AD.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, so it's interesting.
Ironically, they did this walk across the tip of Cornwall to make it safer, because they didn't want to go around Land's End in boats, which was dangerous. Then they encounter wolves, isn't it? So was it safer? Funny. I don't know. Oh, anyway, I've just realised that the last wolf in England is still alive. Oh. Yeah, Wolf from Gladiator.
Oh.
No?
Boom. Yeah. That's dreadful.
Yeah. Contenders ready.
So this is Tremenier Sculpture Garden.
It is.
Got a lovely little vegan inspired cafe back there, good for a pit stop, although we haven't really come far, have we?
We have been here before.
Yes.
In fact, we did make a video about this, didn't we? Was that?
No, it just went out on Patreon.
That was on, okay, but we have been here before.
Yes.
And it's
interesting.
It is. There's lots of sculptures around the garden area there. It is quite an interesting place to wander around.
Yes.
Possibly a bit arty-farty. Can I say that? A little bit arty-farty.
Bit highbrow for you, isn't it, darling?
It is a bit highbrow for me. I do like the sheds though. Yeah. So at the bottom you have a Cornish shed, and at the top you have an Australian shed. There they are. Isn't that clever?
This is Llyn Church, the little village quite close to Penzance. We've just come in the churchyard so that we can tell you next story. I know none of these are necessarily related to the St Michael's Way, but you'll like this one. So we've come into Llyn Church. It's nice and quiet here to tell you a story about Llyn Well. Wells used to be really, really important. Not only were they a source of drinking water for the village, and sometimes allegedly when a person had touched the ground, a natural spring would bubble up, and it was then attributed to a saint like St Justin Roseland, where the water would bubble up. Anyway, there was one here. Now, not only was this well for drinking, but it was an oracle. It was a prophesying well. And let me just give you the background to this. It's again taken from our Robert Hunt book. He gives us a little bit of an account of how the well was interpreted when you asked it a question about a loved one that was no longer near you. So for instance, a wife whose husband had gone to sea and she had no news of him, she could ask the well, was he alive, was he sick, was he well? And the well would answer. Lots of wells there, I realise now. Anyway, let me give you some better understanding of it. And it says here, not only to drink the waters of the well, but to inquire after the life or death of their absent friends, where being arrived they demanded the question at the well whether such a person by name be living, in health, sick or dead. If the party be living and in health, the still quiet water of the well pit, as soon as the question was demanded, will instantly bubble and boil as if a pot of clear crystalline water. If sick, foul and puddled water. If the person you're asking after was dead, there'd be nothing, neither bubble, nor altering of its colour, nor boiling. So that's how they interpreted the well. Now our story is about a young woman whose husband was at sea and she hadn't heard of him, and she was worried because she had a young child to look after. She was worried that he might never come home and see the child. So let me tell you that a minute. So to understand this story, it's a conversation between the wise woman who interpreted the well, the guardian of the well, and a younger woman. And it says, a young woman with a child in her arms stands by the side of Cornwall well in Fosses Moor. There's an expression of extreme anxiety in her interesting face, which exhibits a considerable amount of intelligence. She appears to doubt, and yet be disposed to believe in the virtues of the remarkable well. She pauses, looks at her babe, and sighs. She is longing to know something of the absent, but she fears the well may indicate the extreme of human sorrow. While she's hesitating, an old woman advances towards her, upon whom the weight of 80 years was pressing, but not over heavily. And she at once asked the young mother if she wished to ask the well after the health of her husband. "Yes, Aunt Elsie," she replied. "I'm so anxious. I have not heard of John for 6 months. I could not sleep last night, so I rose to the light and came here determined to ask the well. But I am afraid. Oh, Aunt Elsie, suppose the well should speak. I should die on the spot." "Nonsense, child," said the old woman. "Thy man is well enough, and the well will boil, if thee'll ask it in the proper spirit." So the young woman has her doubts about whether or not the well can tell the truth, and she says, "Has it told any death or sickness lately?" On St. Peter's Eve, Mary Kerno questioned the water about poor Willie. "And the water never moved?" asked the young girl. "The well was quiet, and verily I guess it was about the same time he died." So the woman is trying to verify that the well can be relied upon to give accurate information. But still the young woman hesitated. Desire, fear, hope, doubt, superstition, and intelligence struggled within her heart and brain. Obeying the old woman's direction, she knelt on the mat of bright green grass which grew around, and leaning over the well, so as her face was in the water, the reflection, she repeated after her instructor, "Water, water, tell me truly, is the man I love duly, on earth or under the sod, sick or well, in the name of God?" Some minutes passed in perfect silence, and anxiety rapidly turned the cheeks and lips paled. When the colour rapidly returned, there was a gush of clear water from below. Bubble rapidly followed bubble, sparkling brightly in the morning sunshine. Full of joy, the young woman rose from her knees, kissed her child, and exclaimed, "I am happy now." So it was foretelling that her husband was fine. Unfortunately, Robert Hunt's account stops there, so we don't actually know if the well was for real. But what a lovely story that you actually get the ending that you want in times when you have so much doubt and fear that you've lost someone you've loved.
I really like that story.
I do too.
And you can understand, isn't it, that people would believe in this type of thing, isn't it? It was very little for them to cling on to, and especially if someone was away for a long time. Can you imagine if someone's on a ship for 6 months?
Yeah.
This constant worry about would they ever see their loved one again.
The anxiety,
and you
isn't
can
it?
understand why they latched on to this type of thing.
Yeah.
So a couple of comments from what you just read out there. Poor old Willie.
Yeah.
he didn't make
His water
it, did he?
didn't bubble, did it? No.
And it's part of that folklore, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what that book is all about. It's about, it's called romances,
isn't it?
Romances of the West of England. And it is that superstition, it's that folklore, it's a lovely book. Yeah.
I like the happy ending.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do we know where that well is?
Well, there's a story about that.
Well.
Well, it's, indeed, it's actually a lost well, which I find is really interesting. So there's clues in that. So the Robert Hunt book you just read said it was on Fosses Moor and south of the church, and that, a lot of that was lifted from an earlier book by someone called Hayle, and I think that book was written in about 1760, and that also indicates it was south of the church. And from what I understand, nobody knows where that well once was. Anyway, we'll go and have a little
We'll have a wander around the church.
Yeah, we will have a little look. I think it's really interesting because it was obviously quite a famous well.
Yeah.
And obviously it had
guardian.
Yeah,
had
a guardian
of the well.
And I think it's really interesting over time that it's been completely lost, and now people don't know where it was.
No.
But I've done a little bit of research. There are a few clues, and I think I think I know roughly where it might have been.
Okay.
If I can find a wise old woman, I might ask her. I don't know if there is one in here. South's at the top, is it?
Yeah, well it's kind of over there, but...
No, it's not focusing very well, so we're down that way, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we've just come out the south entrance of the church.
Yeah.
And a lot of the wells that we've seen before are quite close
nearby
to churches, isn't it? It's almost like the church and the well almost go together, isn't it? So to the south, directly to the south of the church is a more modern
extension of the graveyard, isn't it?
Which is here.
Let's just check on the inside wall of the modern half of the graveyard. Not going to see anything over there, are we? All brambles. And it is quite a modern wall. Yeah, I think this is a bit of a wild goose chase. Andrew's got us hunting for a lost well. This is not going to end well, is it? I think we've just proved that the well is lost. Yeah,
it's a shame, isn't it? So there was I took out I had a copy of an ordnance survey from 1877. It does say Old Cornwall Well is on the map, and it's marked, but it's north of the church in a field up there. And lots of people have said online that they've been there. There's nothing there. There's just some brambles and some hedging and what have you. Yeah. But then that doesn't make sense with what these two old books are saying, that they've been a bit south of the church.
Yeah.
And one says it's on, well, they both say it's on Foss's Moor, and that's the area basically from the church going down towards where the sea is, isn't it? But there is the lane that we're now going to walk down is actually called Foss's Lane.
Well, we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, yeah. And but what I think is quite interesting with that is it's one letter off, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fosses,
so Fosses and Fosses.
It's actually
it could have been
one shape off, isn't it?
Yeah. And I actually looked up, do you know what Fosses actually means in Old English?
No.
It means a ditch or like a moat.
Oh, okay.
Again,
which is again related to water. So if you had a spring bubbling up and you had a puddle of water in the ditch. Yeah,
so
okay.
I think where we're walking now, through that little area, somewhere, I think we can say somewhere in that area was probably where this lost well, this Cornwall well would have been.
But we're not really going to find it today,
we're not going to find it, because it is lost.
I don't particularly like this stretch road. It can be quite busy, can't it? It's quite narrow, so...
I'm starting to get a bit concerned for my well-being. If only there was a well we could ask.
You're just squeezing every drop out of this one, aren't you?
I am.
Any more puns?
Can't think of any for a minute.
You can't pump any more out of it.
Oh, very good. Very, very good.
I think I'm on the boil here.
You are? Oh my goodness me. God, I'm terrible, am I? You're good at this. You should do this more often. Good. I am pleased we've done this, though. I can tick it off now. It was on my bucket list. So what? There was somebody left a message in the Facebook group I was looking at and said that they thought that the old well was behind where the GMO car garage is. I think it might still be here, which was certainly here, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And ironically, there's this pool of water in the road.
Look at the water on the road.
It's almost like there's a spring to the side of it.
It is.
So I'm wet now.
It's quite a trek though. If you're carrying a lot of heavy pails of water back up to Cornwall, uphill, you'd send the kids down, wouldn't you? Yeah, look, the rest of the road is dry and it's crossing the road, running all the way down.
The lost well is no longer lost.
Cornish walking trails. What's it? Bust that myth.
Oh, look at that old marker stone behind you. Look at that. Look.
Oh, look at that. Isn't that fantastic?
Penzance 1 mile. Lands N11.
That's ironic. No end to end.
Gosh, it's almost hit it, isn't it?
7. Oh, look.
Oh, I love these. Look at that.
Hayle 7, Camborne 13, Madruth 16, Churro 25.
Brilliant. Oh, it's great. It's still here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're going to cross the railway line over a footbridge and pick up the southwest coast path towards Marazion. this walk all along the coast path to Marazion. It's quite a way. It's longer than you think, really. But I might just sneak on the beach, spend 5 minutes looking for some sea glass, and at the end of this I'm going to drag Andrew into a cake shop, have coffee and cake somewhere.
I'm very happy to be dragged.
Yeah, I thought you would be. Just about to say it's not looking very promising because there's not a lot of sand left on the beach. It's been scoured. But I found a piece already. And I saw a bit out of the corner of my eye and now I can't see it for the life of me. There it is. Got some pieces there. I think I will go home and make something with them. All of the art that I put on the Etsy shop, Cornish Walking Trails, search Cornish Walking Trails, helps us keep this channel going. And if you want something for Christmas, let me know.
Got enough cheese in that?
It's really hard to eat.
What are we up to the rest of the week?
I think you're being watched. No,
Like that.
little cutie. We've seen this before, haven't we, on wood specifically? And these wonderful creatures, they just look amazing. I love the orange against the black. It's so colourful. Beached today, but I bet they float along beautifully.
I can't remember the name for him, but I'm sure if we can find out, we'll pop it on the screen.
I don't think I've ever known the name. If you know, save us the trouble. Pop it in the comments for us.
Got another book? Oh, it's the same one, is it?
Got another story from the same book. So this goes back to 1471. Now back then we had the Wars of the Roses between the Yorkists and the Lancastrians, and you had Henry VI as the Lancaster king and Edward IV as the Yorkist king, and they kept flip-flopping for a while. So in 1471, one of the Lancastrian followers, Richard de Vere, secreted himself as a monk. He took control of St Michael's Mount. The then king, Edward IV, told his High Sheriff of Cornwall, Sir John Arundel, to besiege the mount. Now, there is a little bit of a background to this that you need to know. Sir John Arundel has been High Sheriff of Cornwall for quite a while. He used to live in Bude. He'd imprisoned like a soothsayer because he found that he was doing something wrong. Anyway, when this guy was released from prison, he said to Sir John Arundel, "Whereupon the yellow sand thou shalt die by human hand." And he predicted that Sir John Arundel would die on a beach. At the time Sir John Arundel was living in Bude, he decided this wasn't such a good place to be, having heard this prophecy of his death, and he moved to Rice. So when the king told him to go and besiege St Michael's Mount, he'd kind of forgotten about this prophecy. He arrived on the beach with his troops and besieged St Michael's Mount, which proved more tricky to overwhelm and take back for the king than he'd expected. De Vere's troops came from the mount and they fought Sir John Arundel, and it's on this beach that he died and the prophecy of his death came to fruition. Whereupon the yellow sand, thou shalt die by human hand. And now for the arty bit. Remember the pieces of sea glass I collected on the beach earlier? Let's use them. This piece will be available on etsy.com. Search Cornish Walking Trails. We actually collected on Marazion beach on the day that we filmed the video, so I thought it'd be really nice if I could incorporate those pieces into the painting. So I think I'm gonna go with these. So that's like a puddle of water reflecting the colour of the sky, and maybe with a darker cobble behind it again, some water and some beautiful amber coloured bits of sea glass to look like cobbles, and then this one just a bit bigger so it's in the foreground.
Thank you for joining us today. So we have 3 stories today. We told
Bigger than I was expecting.
Yeah, that got quite close.
So we're going to make this brief. The details for this walk are going to be on Patreon, Cornish Walker level, and if we make it back. So we're going to sign off now. Hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Hopefully we won't get eaten by wolves.
Or wet.